Welcome back to the Black Sea Blues Band Retro Radio, and I'm Joel Seligman. I play tenor sax in the band. The story of the Black Sea Blues Band starts with a love of music. My earliest memories of being affected by music goes back to when I was maybe 5, 6. Figure 1949, 1950, as I was born in 1944. Throughout this whole series, in the end, there is no explaining it. Every culture on earth has music, and why that is, and why I loved it then, and still love it now, your guess is as good as mine. It's a story of the love of music and the sources of music. I lived in Great Neck, Long Island, in a house on a corner, and around about a quarter of the house was an enclosed porch. And on that porch was this contraption. It was called the Capehart. It was from the year 1938-39. I think it was a D model Capehart. It was the state of the art of its time. And what did I know? This is what came with the house, came with my life at the age of 5, along with a bunch of record albums, 12-inch and 10-inch, 78 RPM shellac records. Nobody else played it. It was mine. What was it? It was a console, about 5 feet high and 5 feet wide, and made of wood, I think cherry wood, and on the right-hand side was a door that opened, and there was a radio inside with knobs and dial and a multi-band radio. It got foreign stations. It got local stations. It got Morse code. Really, it did. At the very top of the dial was a green magic eye, and you used it to dial in the stations. This Capehart had something else besides the radio. On the left-hand side, you had opened 2 doors, and inside there was a record changer, purpose of which was to turn over records, so that if you wanted to listen to a whole symphony, let's say, it would stop at the end of a section, mechanically elevate and move the big tone arm, heavy tone arm with a enclosure at the far end, and you'd have to put in brass needles. That's how you have to unscrew a screw and put in a brass needle and tighten the screw. That's how you played these 78 RPM records, which were relatively thick, easily breakable. I dropped one, George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, with the Paul Whiteman Band, and I dropped it, and it broke into 1,000 pieces. Anyway, so there was this contraption that would pick up records, turn them over, slide them down onto the platter, and play the other side. And look, 50% of the time it would work. More than that, let's say, in the old days. But this was already an older machine. Every once in a while, the record wouldn't turn over right, and it would slip, and some prongs would go through the record and crack it. Anyway, but I listened to a lot of music on it. And the music that came with it, you'll hear in the excerpts I have prepared. I hope you listen to it and try to identify what the pieces are that were my earliest musical education. Okay, so how'd you do? First was Ravel's Capriccio Espagnol, then Haydn's Serenade, Dvorak's New World Symphony, Ionesco's Romanian Rhapsody No. 1, Liszt Les Préludes, Grieg Piano Concerto, Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, the one I dropped, Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade, Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, and Rachmaninoff Symphony No. 2. Despite all of its quirks and electric shocks, the Capehart was a gift to me. It not only gave me music I never otherwise would have been exposed to, but also it introduced me to a world of weird machines. Music machines, music mechanisms, which is always really a quest for more ease of use and better sounding reproduction of music. It was my pursuit, along with the pursuit of music. High fidelity. Yes, high fidelity. The other music sources that I had were the TV. I was lucky enough to, somewhere in the early 1950s, have my own tiny TV, 9-inch screen, where you dialed in on a continuous dial. So between channel 5 and 7, I could get the control tower at LaGuardia Airport. So my music came from television shows, Your Hit Parade, which played and acted out the big hits of the week, and of course then there was radio. And I spent a good deal of time listening to the radio and waiting for the song to come that I really wanted. It wasn't like out on the porch. I had a limited number of songs and pieces of music, but I could choose them at will. Radio, you just wait. And you could wait a real long time, go through a lot of songs you didn't like. And yeah, there were songs I didn't like, but I waited for the songs I did. In around 1957, I was about 13 years old. My father asked me if I wanted a wire recorder or a tape recorder. I had never heard of either, had no idea what that was, but I don't know, I figured tape. I said, oh, a tape recorder. And he bought a Grundig Model 830 tape recorder. It had terrific sound, and it had a microphone, so I would pirate songs. I just wait for songs to come on the radio and record them. So I had a way of building a collection. The one song I remember particularly was Do You Want to Dance? Bobby Freeman. I really loved that song. I came home from school and I just waited. And sure enough, at some point, Do You Want to Dance came on and it was mine. I waited for it, I recorded it, and I earned it. Okay, so from the very beginning, there was the Capehart on the porch, the little TV, the Grundig tape recorder, and the radio. But there was one more musical influence in my life, a very important one, and that was my mother. She was the musician in the family. She played piano. I remember as a little boy sitting under the piano while she played it, and I vaguely remember that she sang too, and I know she played on Ted Mack's Amateur Hour, which was before my time. She also educated me in Fats Waller and Lena Horne and the shrewd singing of Frank Sinatra. She gave me a human connection that I obviously never lost. So here are the pieces that I listen to, and one of these is actually my mother's favorite song.
More night without sleeping.
Well, it's a darn good life, and it's kind of funny how the Lord made the bee, and the bee made the honey, and the honeybee looking for a home, and they called it a honeycomb, and they roamed the world, and they gathered all of the honeycomb.
daylight and a drink of rum.
Daylight come and we want go home.
Stack banana till the morning come.
Daylight come and we want go home.
Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana.
Daylight come and we want go home.
Cross over river beyond every cloud. She's past the wind, blowing loud over the mountain. A girl waits for me.
Dream, 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 dream. Dream, dream, dream when I want you. In my arms when I want you. And all your charms whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream.
Oh, well, bless my soul, what's wrong with me? I'm itching like a man on a fuzzy tree. My friends say I'm acting wild as a bug. I'm in love.
Okay, so how'd that go? And the favorite song, which was it? Right, Blue Tango from 1952, Leroy Anderson. He didn't expect it to become the hit that it eventually became. It was paired on the 45 with a song called Belle of the Ball. I never heard of it. And most people didn't either because Blue Tango just took over. It was the first orchestral 45 to sell over 1 million copies. Okay, so I was 8 when that song came out in 1952, and from then on, music became more and more important because I think it just got better and better. And then along came Elvis Presley, and that changed everything. Music, the likes of which I had never heard before, began to predominate. Rock and roll. It was the birth of rock and roll. I remember calling my mother into my room to listen to All Shook Up. I was so sure that this was something new and something revolutionary. And heck, I was right. But I was also wrong. Only through doing this series have I learned the truth of my youth. And that is that, yes, the Black Sea Blues Band does covers, but guess what? So did Elvis. That is, the sound of rock and roll, this revolutionary sound that I thought was invented by Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, was actually invented by a guy who grew up in Brooklyn. Yes, that's true. From my point of view, the sound of rock and roll, songs like Don't Be Cruel, Great Balls of Fire, All Shook Up, were all written by one Otis Blackwell from Brooklyn, New York. I, too, up until the age of 5, was brought up in Brooklyn, New York, the real home of rock and roll. Here's a little history I found about the song. On Christmas Eve 1955, Otis Blackwell found himself on 49th and Broadway in front of the Brill Building in New York City, trying to stay warm and sell some songs. His friend, Leroy Kirkland, walked up and asked Otis if he had written any songs, and Otis said yes. And over the next week, he sold 6 of them, including Don't Be Cruel, for $25 each. Blackwell recorded demos of these songs and pitched them to Elvis. On July 2nd, 1956, Elvis recorded Hound Dog at RCA Studios in New York City. They needed a flip side to the single, so Elvis and his team listened to some of the demos in the studio. And when they came across Don't Be Cruel, Elvis decided they should record it. He and the band spent about 20 minutes learning the song and then recorded it, with Elvis staying pretty close to Blackwell's demo. You'll see, very close. When they were done, it was clear Don't Be Cruel deserved better than B-side status, so they released it as an A-side with Hound Dog. For Blackwell, it was a huge hit. He made a lot of money. Well, he made some money from it because he had to split half of it. That was the deal. Elvis got half credit, and Otis did okay by himself too, because he got royalties for years from the song. But he had to share them with Elvis. Oh well. Now let's check out Otis Blackwell's original.
You know I can't be found sitting home all alone. Really, you can't come around. At least please telephone. Don't be cruel to a heart so true.
Next, let's hear what Elvis does with it, just in case you never heard it before.
You know I can't be found sitting home all alone. If you can't come around, at least please telephone. Don't be cruel to a heart that's true.
Yes, still terrific. Now this is the Bill Black combo version. Bill Black was Elvis Presley's bass player, and he put together a combo of top-notch musicians, and it's really fun music. Often featured a saxophonist, hard-driven, swinging. Bill Black's version of Don't Be Cruel. Oh, that's so much fun. Now, here's a surprise. John Lennon had a thing for Don't Be Cruel. And he did it at least twice. One time is almost unintelligible, so I won't play that one. But here's John Lennon doing at least a part of Don't Be Cruel. Well, you either enjoyed that or enjoyed that you didn't have to listen to it for too long. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the Black Sea Blues Band version of Don't Be Cruel. Hope you like it. Well now, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. That earns you a personal invitation to stay tuned in the near future for episode 3. The working title is A Sea Change. You'll see what I mean. Thanks for stopping by. Till next time, be well.